Hello and welcome to this week's episode of For the Love of Chiropractic. I'm your host, Dr. Robert Freeman. And on today's show, we're going to tackle something that plagues so many doctors and so many practices. Not just chiropractors, not just medical doctors, not just dentists, podiatrists, and so many other healthcare providers you can think of. We've all suffered from it and been on the receiving end of it, and none of us like it. What we're talking about is scheduling the doctor and how long your patients have to wait, or better said, how quickly they can be seen and get the great care that they're looking for and deserve. Welcome to Season 3 of For the Love of Chiropractic. Season 1 has 60 episodes of practice management tips to help you build the best practice possible. Season 2, 3 keys of my success, 50 interviews with the most successful chiropractors from around the world. Season 3, resources for your success. So let's listen up and learn how to build a great business. So as I said in the introduction, on today's show, we're going to be talking about scheduling. And what I mean by that is, how do you put patients in your schedule in such a way that everybody can be seen, heard, taken care of, and know that they're getting great care without your office ever feeling like it's a factory, an assembly line, and you're just moving people through. Because while we never want that to happen, the truth of the matter is all businesses, in some way, shape, or form, are some type of assembly line. A restaurant, a doctor's office, a beauty salon, nail salon, hair cuttery, any service industry, in some way, shape, or form, the business of it is get the person in, provide them with a great experience, and get them out with a smile on their face. So how we schedule people throughout the day becomes incredibly important and efficient. The first piece that I want to talk about is giving people an exact time versus a time zone. Well, what do I mean by that? An exact time, let's pretend that a person needs 5 minutes of the doctor's time. That's not how much time they're in their office. That's how much time they need of your personal attention. So theoretically, you could give one person an appointment at 10 o'clock, 10:05, 10:10, 10:15, and every 5 minutes thereafter, because that's how the doctor's day would progress. The challenge with that, of course, is if your patient who is scheduled at 10:10 arrives at 10:12 or 10:15, by definition, you're now 5 minutes late for the entire rest of the day. That won't work, because as soon as it's 2 or 3 patients or somebody has something else they need to talk about, you're running significantly behind. Instead, what I recommend, and I've talked about this on previous episodes, is let's stick with the 5-minute example. It's 5 minutes of the doctor's time. What I recommend is scheduling 6 people for 10 o'clock. Well, that means people are going to wait. No, it's not. Because somebody is going to show up at 9:45 and get me seen immediately. Somebody else is going to arrive at 9:50. 9:55, 10 o'clock. 10:05, 10:10, and even 10:15, they're running a few minutes late. So by doing that, people come in and get seen immediately, because nobody ever runs exactly on time. Well, what happens if all of those patients arrive 5 minutes early? Okay, someone's going to be seen 5 minutes early, and then it does get pushed a little bit. But having done this for well over 35 years, being respectful of people's time and not expecting people to be exactly on time at the stroke of 10:05, I'm telling you, this is how real life works. and people are incredibly appreciative of it. But as I said, we've discussed that in detail on previous episodes. No, today's episode is going to focus more specifically on the scheduling of multiple people with different things that they happen to need. So again, I want to stick with the 5-minute unit of time that you are with a typical patient to do a full spine adjustment and whatever else you may do with the patient in the room that requires your specific attention. So the very first thing that you need to do is to figure out how much that time is. Have your CAs time you. Don't rush it. Don't drag it out. Get an average of what it really takes. Have your CAs time you. If you're a solo practitioner and you don't have a staff, you know what? Get a little magnetic timer that sits right outside your adjusting door, and as you walk in, push start. Finish the conversation, the adjusting, provide great care, and as you happen to walk out, push stop. Do that a series of times and get an idea of what your average time is. If you're not a solo practitioner and you have even one employee, they can do it for you. But I want it to be as nonchalant as possible for you, the provider, and for the patient, because we never want them to think they're being timed. They're not. We're trying to improve our efficiency and figure out what that timing looks like. So for the purpose of our example, we'll stick with the 5-minute timeline. Some people say, oh, you can't provide great care in 5 minutes. And what I ask you is, if you're in a relationship and have a significant other, and they say, can you please adjust me? How long does it take you to adjust them? If you love this person, we assume you're giving them great care. How long does it take you to give them great care? Well, it shouldn't take significantly more time to do that in your office setting. So 5 minutes is not at all unusual. I know very successful chiropractors who base their turn on 3 minutes. I know some 4-minute, 5-minute, 6-minute, and a few 8-minute. Very successful chiropractors. But the number's not important for the purpose of this conversation. What's important is the concept that we're building out. We're going to stick with 5 minutes because it's an easy round number to work with. So if you know that an average regular patient visit is 5 minutes, terrific. Now let's look at the other things that require your attention with a patient. A re-examination, for example. How long does it take you to provide a re-examination? And is that done in your adjusting room, or is that done in a different examination room? I don't care which one it is. I think it's better to do it in an examination room because the patient really understands this is a significantly different event that is going on. And that gives you an opportunity to do a re-report of findings with the patient also because it's a significantly different procedure. And of course, because it's a significantly different procedure, the billing is different because you are doing an examination. So I like to do that in the exam room. Well, how long does that take? To do the full re-examination, in my experience, is typically about the same amount of time that it takes to do a regular patient visit adjustment. So we're going to call that one time slot. So if you're doing the re-examination on that patient and you're doing an adjustment on that patient, that counts for 2 of your time slots. So going back to the example where we started, booking 6 people at 10 o'clock, that re-examination becomes 2 of the 6 slots. All right, so that's a re-examination. How much time does it take you to process a new patient? Well, there's a couple parts to processing a new patient. I'm not talking about them filling out the paperwork. That doesn't require any of your time. I'm talking about the doctor's time. So you sit down with the patient, you welcome them to the office, you create rapport and review their paperwork and review their case history with them. As you're taking that detailed history and creating the rapport, how much time does that take you? Again, have your CA time you so you really know what it takes. What I can tell you is it's going to be somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes. Ooh, that's 1 or 2 time slots. What about the examination itself? How long does it take you to do the physical examination with the patient? So if you're taking the vital signs, that counts. If your CA takes the vital signs, it doesn't count. But as you go through and do the chiropractic, orthopedic, and neurologic testing, whether you're doing full spine or regional or the extremity region, how long does that take you? And in my experience, again, that's going to take you between 5 and 10 minutes. If you do any type of imaging or other diagnostic testing, maybe it's subluxation testing or the myovision, maybe it's x-rays, each one of those typically take about 5 minutes also. So when you add all of that together, it means that a full new patient is going to take about 20 minutes of the doctor's time. Let's say it's 5 minutes for the exam, 5 minutes for the history, 5 minutes for imaging. Well, you know what? One of those is going to run over. Okay, so that's why I put the extra one in. Call it 20 minutes. So that 20 minutes, how many time slots is that? That's 4 of the 6. And by knowing that's how long it takes to do that, and what is being scheduled for the patient in a single doctor office, you can schedule new patients at virtually any time. You can schedule re-examinations at virtually any time. You can schedule regular patient visits at any time. Do I think that's what you should do? No. And the reason I say no, when you're in crunch time, first hour of each shift, last hour of each shift, is when most of your patients want to get in for a regular patient visit. It's not fair to make the needs of the many be outweighed by the needs of that one new patient. It's not fair to keep your good regular patients waiting while you take care of that one new patient who may or may not even really be in the right place. They may or may not need chiropractic care from you. You may be referring them to somebody else. Probably not. But your patients who are already in your system, let's never make them wait. Let's never squeeze in a new patient. Well, I'll make it work. No, take great care of your regular patients. Now, obviously, if you're brand new in practice and don't have a ton of regular patient visits, you want to be as helpful to people as possible, so you pretty much can schedule that new patient anytime. Now, when the person calls to make the appointment, you don't say, "I can see you anytime." You use what we call the 2 choices rule. Today or tomorrow, morning or afternoon, earlier in the morning or later in the morning. I could do 10 or I could do 10:30. 2 choices, and bring them home to a good parking spot that's going to work for the schedule and for them without saying, "So when do you want to come in?" That's if you're new in practice. Once you've been established longer, you'll have a bunch of regular patient visits that you're working around, and you know that Shirley is going to want to be there every day or every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 11 o'clock. And we don't want to make Shirley wait, right? All right, but what if as you get busier, you're a multi-doctor office? We're going to stick with that 5-minute time slot. So who's seeing the new patient? One is a Dr. A or Dr. B. And will your regular patients see either of the doctors Do you have one big mixed happy practice, or do you have two separate practices where Dr. A never sees Dr. B's patients? If you do have those two separate practices under one roof, then you continue to schedule like you have a single doctor office. And you need to be more concerned about it because the exam room or the consultation room has now been booked and is accounted for. So while you could do a consultation in a different place in the office, your exam/x-ray room, if you have x-rays in your office, has been booked for a certain unit of time, 5 or 10 minutes. So that has to be considered in the multi-doctor office, where that has two separate practices. If you have multiple doctors where all of the patients will happily see all of the doctors, then scheduling becomes really easy. Again, based on the 5-minute time slot and at 6 patients per half hour per doctor, you now have 12 time slots per half hour with your 2 providers. So it becomes really easy to see the regular patients and process new patients at virtually any time. You can provide even better service for the community, again, until you get even busier. And then again, at your crunch times, you don't want people waiting because you have one doctor off the floor processing a new patient. Make sense? Okay, so if all that makes sense, the giant monkey wrench that gets thrown in is the walk-in patient. Do you have time for them or not? If you're a practice that likes giving people the flexibility of having walk-ins, it means you never book your schedule completely out and you always leave 1 or 2 slots every half hour for that walk-in patient who might just happen to show up. Now, personally, I'm not a fan of that. In fact, in my over 35 years of active practice, I have said to many patients, some of them my dearest and closest friends, please don't just show up, because you end up waiting longer and my staff has to jumble around to make things work, finding your chart, getting an appointment scheduled in the computer. You know, I know you have a cell phone with you. So if you're driving by and you're going, oh, I'm going to get adjusted today, pick up the phone and call and say, is it okay if I'm there in 5 minutes? No problem. We can do all the work ahead of time and it fills the slots. Oh, you know what? I'm really sorry. Doc's schedule is really busy right now and we don't want to just squeeze you in. So a half hour from now, he has a slot. I have a slot I can put you in with no problem. See how much nicer that is? By doing that, you're being more respectful of the person's time. They're more respectful of your expertise as a doctor, your time, your timing, and your practice and our profession. It all works. So I'm not a huge fan of the walk-in office. Well, what do you do if someone just happens to walk in? You explain to them. I like for the doctor to explain to them in a very polite, respectful way. Oh, hey, Steve. It's great to see you today. I didn't see you on the schedule. Oh, no, Doc, I just stopped in. Wow. In the future, if you would please call us, because that way, you don't have to wait. And we try to never let people or make people wait in our office, but it makes it so much easier for the office if you'll just call ahead of time. Even if you're, pulling in the parking lot, hey, I'll be there in 2 minutes. Please do that. And I have never had a patient not be understanding and appreciative and then step in line with that's how we handle things in our office. And I think you should do the same with your office. Because when you handle the scheduling, your day flows better. You have happier customers. We happen to call them patients, but they are our customers. And when you have happy patients, great customers, they stay, they refer, and they're talking about you because you're the great office that never makes them wait and always provides great, fantastic chiropractic care to them. All right, and that's our show for today. If you have a question about today's show or your own practice, feel free to reach out at fortheloveofchiropractic.com. Before making changes to your practice, be sure to seek legal advice regarding those changes and regulations in your state. For the Love of Chiropractic is an RGF production, all rights reserved. And thanks for listening. Original music provided by Hunter Rich Music.